Yeah, I'm fully with you guys. Love is the answer, the only true answer to anything. And it's really the only thing I am confident that I know at this point is that I just know that love is always the answer and the highest truth. And beyond that, I don't know anything, but I know that because it has proved itself in my experience every single time I've applied it. Every life lesson I've learned, I look back and go, wow, love was the answer to that. Loving consciously in my life looks like a radical commitment to keeping my heart open in all circumstances, in all situations, to make love the principal motive of everything I do. Everything requires consciousness and love. And your ability to do it with the small things will translate to your ability to do it effortlessly and easily with the big things in life, the challenges, the conflicts in life. That's really all that matters at the end of the day. Love and awareness. Can you just be aware of what's happening in your world with love? And that's an important point about love is that love always provides a solution where both people win, right? Love means do no harm because that's the frequency of the new earth, right? Is unity consciousness. We're all in this together. We're all one. If we come together, we can make the most incredibly beautiful, blissful, happy, healthy planet. So as you guys have emphasized, there is never a reason not to give love. There's never a situation that doesn't call for love. So we are the conduits of love. Know yourself, love yourself, and then you can truly be the creator because that's all it means. To become the creator of your life, your personal reality, means to be able to consciously and lovingly choose your intention in every moment.
Welcome home to the Loving Consciously podcast. My name is Amaris.
And my name is Eric.
And if you are like us, nobody taught you how to love. We are best friends and life partners here to vulnerably and authentically share our journey while exploring the sacred realms of love, consciousness, relationships, spirituality, and all that they encompass.
The intention of this show is to help you consciously relate to yourself, others, and everything else in this universe. Together, we can embody a more intentional and fulfilling way of giving and receiving love.
Loving consciously. Through 8 years together, we have had the opportunity to overcome deep patterning and programming, as well as trauma related to mental health, addiction, pregnancy loss, infidelity, and immense grief. After 6 years of experiencing these challenges with no knowledge on how to heal or love each other, we separated.
After us both spiritually awakening and recommitting, we formed our conscious partnership and have spent the last 2 years cultivating a divine union founded on unconditional love, devotion, and commitment to personal growth.
Thank you for joining us and doing the work alongside us as we explore this beautiful world of love and consciousness to co-create a new world of love.
As you courageously walk this path, remember to have grace with yourself and know that you have both the capacity to love consciously and the power to always choose love.
Namaste, and welcome back to the Loving Consciously podcast. This is an incredibly special episode. It's special because we are recording it from Asheville, North Carolina. It's special because it will be airing on Election Day, a day that regardless of who you are, where you come from, or what you believe, the collective could use some consciousness and love. And it's special because we have one of our favorite people, somebody that we deeply love and respect, someone who has been a profound impact in our life, here to talk about consciousness and love and relationships. And so before we get into all of that, I'm honored to welcome Aaron Abke. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure. And I think we talked about doing this when we were at that festival, in May or June of this year?
Yeah, back in the eclipse.
Yeah, the eclipse. That's right. So here we are.
Oof. Time is flying. Yeah.
Feels like years ago already.
Yeah. Well, we are so excited to have your wisdom and your love and your light here to talk about these things. And before we get into that, first things first, if anyone is joining us from Aaron's community and you're new here, the intention of this show is to amplify consciousness and love, most importantly, and encourage healing in this collective through those two things. And so, Aaron, I would love it if you would share just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe what got you to this place of this really magical work that you're doing for the collective.
Yeah, I think about that quite often, actually. How did I get where I am? And manifest this incredible lifetime of being of service in this way. Not a day goes by I don't wake up with incredible gratitude to do what I do. And, if I had to give you a quick summary, it would be just that my suffering carried me here day by day, moment by moment, being with the pain of the human experience and asking those important questions of why am I here? What is my purpose? Is there a greater reason why I'm here than just to go through a mundane human life and take pleasure and avoid pain for a few years before I die? There's got to be more than that to life. And that was always my burning question, even as a Christian. And so, I grew up as a pastor's kid. I served as a full-time pastor at 23 to 24, had an awakening out of religion. And then fast forward about three or 4 years later, I had another awakening. But this was more of the classic awakening of, becoming aware of the nature of oneness and unity. And that's what really kind of pushed me on my path for what I do today, is that I was suffering really intensely in my 20s from, leaving my religion, which completely inverts your entire framework of reality when you do that. It's very disorienting. Got divorced at 26 from my then Christian wife that I married at 23 after, going to college and whatnot. All my family and friends think I'm a heretic now and have kind of ostracized me. So I'm all alone, living back at home with my parents in the Bay Area, divorced, no real friends, and I don't even know what I believe about God. So it was a very disorienting period of time. And I was really suffering intense depression and hopelessness. And what am I even here for? What am I supposed to do? I thought I was going to be a pastor my whole life. And now I just don't even know who I am anymore. I'm just a personal trainer at Google. And it was through that suffering that I had an awakening that gave me a glimpse of the state of consciousness that's available to everyone, which I now teach and describe as fourth density consciousness, which we can get into if you want. But it's essentially just fourth chakra consciousness, which is heart chakra, heart-based consciousness, I call it. And I got to experience that state for about 2 weeks straight. And what that did for me was it gave me unwavering conviction that living from that state is not just a pie in the sky dream, a hopeful wish, but it's totally available if you're willing to do what it takes to earn it. And then number two, it gave me this total disinterest in, the world of form, and all the vanities I was pursuing just didn't interest me anymore. So I kind of just devoted my whole life after that awakening experience to learning how to, get myself back to that state of consciousness again, one day at a time. I was given this sort of free sample, right, of enlightenment that really, really helped me to back engineer my mind of, what was not present in that state that is present now. Because it's not the opposite, right? It's not as if that state suddenly came upon me and then it left me. I realized, no, that was my underlying state of consciousness. And it was just that all of the egoic, traumatic distractions and blockages were somehow temporarily removed for a few weeks. And I got to experience the underlying state of heart-based consciousness. So how do I get rid of the things that are now impeding that awareness? And that's when, many of the things I teach now slowly started coming in through different texts like the Law of One and A Course in Miracles. The main one being the three beliefs of ego, which didn't come from a text actually, but just kind of came organically through wanting to trace back my suffering. I realized, hey, there's really just three negative emotions that humans suffer from, which is sadness, anger, and fear. And there's many flavors of all those three emotions, but those are the root kind of three emotions. And those three emotions signal three distinct beliefs that the ego holds: the belief in lack, the belief in attachment, and the belief in personal control. And so I really began working on those three beliefs for a couple of years. Once I came to the conclusion that, yes, this is in fact the truth, my ego really just believes in these three things. If I can master the awareness of these three things and sort of requalify them with abundance and non-attachment and trust, then I won't suffer from them anymore. And as I started to see these practices really working well for me, then, as we all do, the kind of natural desire is I want to help other people with these teachings that have helped me so much. And so that's when I got inspired to start a YouTube channel and just to start making videos, and no intention at all or thought at all that I would turn this into a career or something. I would have told you that I wasn't a good speaker. I wasn't meant to be a public speaker or something like that. I just wanted to make some videos that maybe it'll help some people out. And if it helps a few people, that'll be great. And to my surprise, my videos started performing really well. And, I just kept creating more videos as my viewers were requesting more videos. And then, fast forward 5 years later, and here we are having this conversation.
I would venture to say you've helped a few people, maybe just a couple.
I think so too.
Yeah, something really key that stood out to me that you were talking about is just kind of this. I think a lot of us can relate. I know we deeply can, and we talk a lot on the show, is suffering and suffering as the catalyst of, it doesn't even really matter what the thing is, just whatever is causing this like deep human suffering. And I think we labelize it as like, oh, it's addiction or it's mental health or it's a breakup or it's this. And it's really
Mhm.
just detachment from source,
Yeah.
detachment from truth, detachment from love. Like we're so far away from our natural state that we're suffering.
Yeah.
So I really
That's it.
appreciate you sharing that. I realized we got so excited to just like get into it. We didn't say how we know you, and we didn't ask our intro question either. We
Ah.
are both alumni of 4D University,
Mhm.
which we didn't get into quite yet there, but we will in a moment when we talk about consciousness. And we've had the pleasure of meeting you in Austin and then uh, Texas twice, something like
Mhm.
that.
Other
Time's a blur
places.
this
Yep.
year. Yeah, other places. And something people say about you that I would be remiss if I didn't mention here that rung true for us is how authentic the Aaron Abke that you see as the spiritual teacher, right, that you see on the internet and YouTube and in this platform is the same person that you get in person, and how much you just really embody what you're teaching. Because in the spiritual space right now, we have a little bit of a gap, I think, with, people who
Mhm.
are conceptually teaching something and people who are embodying it in their daily lives. So I'd love
Yeah.
to offer that to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the authenticity, right, that frequency of just truth is palpable, whether you're interacting virtually or whether you're interacting physically. And when there's a gap in whether you're teaching from an intellectual space or whether you're speaking from the heart,
Mhm.
it's something that resonates differently. And that's something that I really appreciated about, dropping in with you during our time in Austin was that you can tell that you're speaking from experience. Those who have walked the shadow path and chosen love and chosen to do that work and come out the other side,
Mhm.
there is a vibration that we carry that impacts the world around us. And that's the power of consciousness and our ability to really bring and birth love into this world. And so
Mm,
thank you very much for doing that work, for teaching other people to do that work, because it really is impacting the consciousness of this planet.
mm,
Yeah. Wow. Thank you guys for the reflection. That's a beautiful reflection. And nothing makes me more grateful than to hear a reflection like that, because I do strive to embody the teachings with all my heart every day, because I don't feel like I can be a true teacher if I don't embody the energy I'm teaching about. It's not to say that the teachers in the world that maybe aren't very embodied in their teachings yet, but they have a lot of knowledge but not a lot of integration, it's not to say that they can't still do good, because God uses everybody. But it's just that if you want to be of maximal service and effectiveness, then you do have to be that embodiment, because ultimately, like, words can only do so much for somebody. But what really heals people, what really transforms people, is when they can experience the energy of the solution in your energy field when you're with them, whether or
mm,
not you give them advice. If they can feel that, hey, this person is free from what I'm suffering from, then there's this immediate hope that's sparked within them of, oh, healing is possible. It's available. This person is the proof that I can be free from this. It does so much more just through your embodiment and the energy you
mm.
carry than you could ever do with words alone, right?
Yeah, I always say energy doesn't lie. And on the flip side, right, like you said, we've been having that experience a lot lately where we come into contact with people and that light really impacts them. And we don't have to do anything. We don't have to say
Yeah.
anything. We don't have to tell them
Yep.
who we are. You just have to be. You just have to be in the love. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you know this. We when we discovered you, I think it was almost 3 years ago. And I'll never forget the day he comes in thinking like, okay, this is a bit radical, right? At least at that point. And he goes, so YouTube added like suggested this to me. And I found this guy, Aaron Abke, and he's doing these videos on this thing called the Law of One. And so that's how we found you. Fast forward
Mhm.
another year later, we did 4D University. And so I'd love to ask our intro question because I'm going to keep
Mhm.
forgetting. And then we can move into talking about consciousness because you have a university for this, for consciousness
Mhm.
expansion. And it is what we are living through in this planet right now. And so before I do that, I would love to ask you, Aaron, what does loving consciously look like in your life?
Mm. Loving consciously in my life looks like a radical commitment to keeping my heart open in all circumstances, in all situations, to be as mindful as possible as I go through my day, to endow everything I'm doing, everything my hand finds to do, as the Bible would say, with a loving intention, to make love the principal motive of everything I do, even when it's something that seemingly doesn't need love, right? Like opening a bag of cashews to eat some cashews. Like I'll still try to stop in those moments and just create a loving intention of like, I'm so grateful for these healthy cashews I get to eat or these delicious nuts I get to eat. There's no excuse not to give love to what you're doing. And the reason that to me is a practice that translates to loving consciously in my personal relationships with my wife, my daughter, my friends, my family, is because the way you are with one thing is the way you are with anything. And so I think the challenge a lot of us face is that we try to create loving intentions when we're with our partner or whatever, but because we're not doing it as a normal, daily practice with everything, it feels hard to do it when we're in a conflict or a challenge with somebody and love feels difficult to access. And I learned over time of making that mistake that it's only because I'm not staying devoted to that love in all situations. I'm just trying to sort of call upon it when I really need it to resolve a conflict or whatever. And so loving consciously means just that to me. It's like everything requires consciousness and love. And your ability to do it with the small things will translate to your ability to do it effortlessly and easily with the big things in life, the challenges, the conflicts in life.
Mm,
You want it?
go ahead
Yeah.
first.
I love that answer. And it's something that really rings true because it's been kind of the natural progression of our journey as well of bringing love and consciousness to every action. And you spoke about the bag of cashews, but like that's a very tangible and real example. Giving love and gratitude for the water that we're drinking, you
Yeah.
know, going out and giving gratitude and love for the air that we're breathing. Like it's these small and little things that we do in our life that reverberates out into every aspect of our existence.
Yes.
And what you're sharing is essentially like in relationships and as we navigate this world, um, there's a tendency to want to bring love and consciousness to the big things in our life and then bring all of our energy and attention and focus on that, but neglect the little things. And that's just like going to the gym after not having going to the gym in 3 years and saying, I'm going to bench 300 pounds. You know, we have to do the reps of,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
small things in our life to exercise our capacity to hold love so that we can bring that to the larger things in our life with success.
Mm, it's very true.
Beautifully
Well,
said.
yeah. Well, I'd love to get into consciousness because obviously it's one of our two favorite topics on this show. And I want to hear from your perspective because you so beautifully described this. If listeners are listening and they're not familiar, or if they're listening and they just want to hear you describe it for the hundredth time because it's beautiful and amazing, how do you explain consciousness and where we are as a species, fourth density, and kind of the process that we find ourselves in right now?
Well, we could go two different ways. If somebody's looking for a more like analytical, scientific, metaphysical understanding of consciousness, I love to look at the seven densities model. But when it comes to like just the sort of spiritual essence of what we mean when we use this word consciousness is even simpler to me. It's just the I am, the sense, the feeling, the aliveness inside all of us that knows we exist. That's consciousness. And that consciousness, which is sort of announcing itself in everybody as this feeling I am, that nobody can deny for even a moment that they exist. And this is the most obvious fact of our existence. Nobody even questions it. Nobody ever needs to be taught that they exist. It's the most innate thing to us all. In that I am principle, we see the male female principle, which are the sort of dual nature of God or the divine, is that it expresses itself in part male, part female, and the two polarities always go together. They always balance and complement each other. And so in the I am, I is the male principle of, consciousness, knowingness. It's the part of us that's able to be individualized and know myself from another. That's I, that's the masculine. And then am is the feminine, which is more of the oceanic beingness itself, which everything possesses as well. And that amness, the female principle, isn't trying to localize itself or individualize. It wants to be oceanic. It wants to encompass everything. And so typically the female principle, at least in function, is seen as love, whereas the masculine principle in function is seen as wisdom. So I am, we have wisdom and love. It's all kind of the same theme, many ways to describe it, but this is the irrevocable nature of consciousness, is it is male, female energy combined to create this experience of being aware, being awake in reality, experiencing being a person and learning and growing and evolving towards love and oneness. This is only possible because of the I am principle, the male female principle of consciousness that's alive in everybody. So I think when you see that, when you see polarity and you're like, oh, this is undeniable, you start to see that polarity, the male female principles at play in everything in your life, even down to the very words people say to you. You can sort of feel the charge behind people's words when you're aware of this, the nature of polarity, that everything is the expression of polarity, this I am essence manifesting itself. And so you can feel the charge behind people's words, whether it's positive or negative. You start tapping into this principle in everything. And that's because consciousness is everything, right?
That it is. We are muting ourselves. There are quite a lot of airplane activity here in Asheville. We've got a lot of helicopters and airplanes going on, so it's a little loud, but it really is. Consciousness is everything. And, something I think that I really wanted to touch on here, we were talking about before this, and we actually just recorded an episode talking about this, is like the power of consciousness. And if there's
Mhm.
one thing that I would love for listeners to take away from this and hear your perspective on, is the power of our consciousness, like the power that we have in cultivating that, in, healing the relationship to that, and choosing love in that. And I think, both because this is going to be airing on election day and just where we are right now. Before this, we were talking about the hurricane and the disaster relief we're doing here. And I just think at this point in time, I would love to hear if you agree, like people need more love, right? We need more love, and we get there through more consciousness and through healing those aspects of ourselves and our subconscious and all of this that are preventing us from, getting there. So I'd love to hear
Mhm.
your thoughts on like the power of our consciousness and maybe how you think, obviously outside of, and I would plug this 1,000 times, attending 40 University, like how you think people can start to more healthily engage with that ever pervasive, all encompassing consciousness that's in everything.
A wonderful question. And that's the whole subject matter of what we do in 40U, is how do we actually live from a higher state of consciousness? What does that practically look like? I really never want anything I teach to be a, esoteric, ambiguous idea that people just think about it, but they don't really know how to actually live it or translate it to their life. I really strive to make all my teachings like practical, and you can plug these right into your daily experience. And I think the male female principle, taking that one step further, you see it in different archetypes like conscious mind, subconscious mind, right? Conscious mind masculine, subconscious feminine. And then we have thought and emotion. Thought is masculine, emotion's feminine. So these principles of consciousness are always at play so long as we are having an experience. And so it beckons us to be very aware and mindful of what we're thinking about and how we're feeling about what we're thinking. Because the feeling is the charge, right? The power, the thing that actually infuses a thought with creative potential is the feeling you have about it. A thought that has no emotion attached to it at all is just seen as neutral and empty. It doesn't have really power to create change in your reality. And thank God, right? If every little minutia of thought we have had to manifest in a physical way, it'd be pretty tough to have a human experience, right?
Mm.
So the subconscious mind only, I sort of think of it like the subconscious mind, the feminine principle is looking up at the conscious mind, and the conscious mind is kind of like a thought repository that's just holding a bunch of thoughts. And the subconscious is looking at this thought repository, and it's only going to grab and pull down the thoughts that I feel something about. Because it says, oh, that thought's important because there's feeling attached to it. So let's pull that into the subconscious. And then
Mhm.
it becomes a belief, a conviction, a desire, something like that. It's part of the subconscious now. And now it does have to manifest, and it will, and will continue to manifest until I requalify it or whatever else I wish to do with it, strengthen it. You know, you're the creator. You can choose your relationship to any thought. But if you don't know you're the creator, then you live like a victim and you feel like all of the bad things that happen to you are unfair, and you lose the ability to be aware of the fact that I'm actually inviting and creating these negative experiences through where I'm placing my thought and emotion. If I'm thinking negative thoughts that I'm feeling negative about, I'm basically, throwing up a giant sign to the universe that says, please bring me experiences that match these thoughts and feelings. It's an immutable law that can't be avoided. We can only choose how we want to be in relationship to this law. And so consciousness in our daily life has to look like, sort of as we said a minute ago, a very mindful intention about what I focus on, and not just what I focus on, but how I focus on it, right?
Mm.
Because in the spiritual world, there's a certain segment of people that I would say are probably more new to the spiritual journey, who kind of think intuitively like, oh, it's bad to be engaged in the world of form. Don't get involved in the world. Don't look at the problems of the world. You only make it worse when you look at it. Ignore, 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 and go within and raise your consciousness. And there's some truth to that, in that we don't want to always just be paying attention to negativity, but we're definitely not here to avoid the world and ignore the problems of the world, because that's part of our evolution as well. Is how do we be of service? How do we bring this love and light we work so much on to the world and actually demonstrate it? That's really all that matters at the end of the day. And so if we want to be able to manifest the love in the world, then we should want to engage with the challenges, the pain, the suffering, the calamities that happen in the world. But how do we engage with them? Do we get drawn up in the fear porn and the panicking and all of that? Well, then that isn't helping for sure. But if we can look at a problem in the world and say, how do I bring light to this? How do I bring enlightenment to this? And we engage with it from that perspective, well, then now we're using our consciousness in a very beneficial way. And so it's not about, like, nothing in the universe is inherently right or wrong or valid or invalid. It's all about the how we engage with it makes all the difference. And so I think that, if I'm remembering the full question, I think that was the full essence of what you asked. But we just want to simplify this whole question. It's love and awareness. Can you just be aware of what's happening in your world with love? And if that's all you can do, if it's an overwhelming challenge and you're like, I don't have the bandwidth in me right now to go out and serve people, like I'm struggling, I'm suffering, I'm barely hanging on. Fine. You're not asked or mandated to be of service. It has to be of your free will. So if you don't have that capacity, you're not without hope still. You can just be aware of what's arising in your mind, in your emotions, in your world, and just give it love in whatever way you can. That is enough to requalify your life and slowly allow that light to permeate through your life. But again, this is a daily practice. It doesn't happen overnight. And if we expect these things to just work immediately and our whole life should start shifting dramatically the moment we apply these principles, we might be let down, because they don't always work that quickly. And that's because we've spent 10, 20, 30 plus years qualifying our mental world very negatively, right? So we've built up a lot of negative energy in the mind. We probably shouldn't expect it to all just be healed and transmuted after a couple of days of practice. So I find that it's really the perseverance and the dedication to the practice every day that our students struggle the most with.
Mm.
So much wisdom in there. Do you mean to tell me we can't just like meditate for a week and it's all better?
Maybe some people
Um,
can. Maybe the Buddha did that or
yeah.
something.
I guess those are just lucky ones, good genetics, right?
Good
You know,
spiritual genetics.
Mm.
I really, I love something you were saying, and I was hearing in my head something we heard in church recently. The guest speaker, the title of the talk was Everything is an Inside Job. And
Nice.
it just was such a beautiful talk. And, we're doing an episode coming up called Love is an Inside Job. But, you know, no matter where you are in your journey, it's all perfect. We're all in different places and we all have different capacities. And the
Mhm.
most impactful thing, we're always telling people on the show, the most impactful thing that you can do is radically love, accept, and heal yourself, first and foremost.
Yep.
And then there's this point, this really beautiful point that we've been navigating and talking a lot about of like consumer versus creator, and where you reach a point where your cup is so full and that you want to go out and share that with the world. And there was definitely a time in our relationship where we just didn't have the capacity. Like we were thick in the work. And being in Nashville here, mm, this has been the first opportunity to like physically, outside of, holding space and talking to people, but like to physically be the conscious light being that I am today in the wake of devastation, and suffering, the peak suffering that we will probably see on this planet, and to hold that container and to be that love, to not identify with it, to not get depressed, because that's what I would normally have done, 3, 5, 10 years ago. And so just, to listeners, like it's a journey, it's a process, like you always say, like
Yeah.
have grace with yourself and know, wherever you are in your journey, like as long as you've said, love and awareness, like choose love as much and as radically as you can. And when you can't or you don't, doesn't matter. Like just bring awareness to it and requalify it.
Mm. Yeah, and that concept of grace across both of what you all said rings true because this journey, depending on when you start it and the karma that you've brought along with you in this lifetime, it's gonna look different for everybody. And it's not a linear journey, right? It's not like,
Mhm.
okay, we're just gonna slowly increase in consciousness and love and capacity to serve others. We are given opportunities to kind of test our consciousness throughout our life and to open up our capacity to find even deeper healing and even more love and get to depths that we haven't gotten to at all up until this point, right? The present moment is all that we have. And grace is the most important tool that I found for myself and in this partnership to be able to navigate that journey because the mind can so easily spiritually hijack, or the ego can really hijack the spiritual nature of what we're doing and be like, see, you're not spiritual enough, or see, you reacted and so you haven't healed
Yep.
yet and you're not ready to serve other people.
Mm,
And or like you were saying, we just need to not look at all the negativity in the world and just focus on the love and light and reject that part of this experience and just hope that we can only manifest love and light when in reality it's about bringing love and consciousness to everything that we do,
Everything.
including the shadows, including our brothers and sisters that are suffering, because that is the journey. It's walking through our shadows and our suffering, bringing love and attention to ourselves to fill our cup so that we can understand the healing process that we've gone through internally and then be able to serve others along their journey as well, right? It's an
Hmm.
inside job and then it
Hmm.
becomes service. And we have to be constantly mindful of when our cups are full and ready to serve and when we are in a
Oh yeah.
place where we need to fill our cup again because it's not this like, cool, I got my cup filled and now I can eternally pour out my cup in service, right?
Mhm.
It's this constant dynamic of like, okay, I'm ready to serve. I learned this lesson. I have this place. Okay, I've been able to hold space for others. Now it's time to really go back in, do more work, learn the next lesson, and then go be able to serve in that capacity.
So many great points there, man. Both of you guys. And I'm glad you brought up the concept of how the spiritual ego will weaponize our, shortcomings or our challenges to make us feel like we're not good enough or not evolving enough. It's so true because everything is vibration, right? In the universe, one of the other natures of consciousness is that it's always in motion. It's never static, right? It's always flowing. And so if everything is vibrating, then life, you said it's not linear, right? It's like I started my spiritual journey. And then from that starting point, ever since then, it's been a gradual increasing of consciousness,
And
steady
then I made
line
it.
going straight up. And then boom, I arrived at enlightenment. It's more like this, right? It's like, yeah, it's trending up, but it's a vibration, right?
That might be the new word. How you doing today? I'm trending up.
Ah,
I like
yes.
that. I like that.
We're gonna make a t-shirt of that one for
Yeah,
sure.
we'll coin that. That'll be Aaron Abke merch. We're trending up.
How are you? I'm trending up. That's a great way to say
That
I'm
is a
not
great
doing
way.
well, but I'm focusing on being happier. That's a
Oh,
good
I
one.
really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the point I'm getting at here is that I've learned this in my own walk, right? That everything is vibrating, which means even my own energy field is in a state of vibration or flux. And I call this the Ascension Spiral because it's just a way I try to conceptualize this idea that, and this is the way I picture it, but our energy field expands wider and wider. Like if we were, if we had the psychic faculties, which some people do, to like fully see auras, then if somebody was in a state of love, we would watch their aura expanding. And if they went into a state of fear or something, we'd watch it contract. And our energy field actually does this naturally in the very same way that our body does it naturally. And that our body is always gradually purifying itself, right? It's trying to always eliminate toxins, and it's only when we have too rapid of an accumulation of toxins that we get sick. And then the body goes into a real like healing program where you're going to have a cough, sneeze, runny nose, fever, rashes, sweating, diarrhea. There's all these ways the body eliminates toxins. And so if we know that everything functions in essentially upon the same principles, then our energy body is also doing that, right? It's also always trying to purge and purify. But if there's too much accumulation of negative energy, there will be I call it a die off. There will be at some point a die off, which is the healing program of, hey, there's too much negative energy in the frequency. We got to get it out. So you're going to go through a period of whatever it is, depression, bitterness, anger, trauma. Something's going to come up that's tough to deal with. And if you think it means you've regressed, you're doing yourself a huge disservice, right? Because this is actually negative energy coming up is actually always a sign of progress, right? In the same way that being sick in the physical body is always a sign of healing taking place. So it's never a bad thing when negative energy comes up, but ego is very try to define it as that and say, look, shame on you. You still have insecurity. You still have this or that. And then you define yourself by it. You identify with it. So once you know that this is actually a process, a vibrational process, that we're going to go up, we're going to feel very expansive, maybe for a few days or weeks, we're feeling amazing, right? And then it's going to go like this, and we're going to dip down into the lower vibrations and bring some stuff up. And we just have to know that that's an inevitable part of the process. Until we become fully crystallized, we're going to go through these cycles, these ascension spirals, where you spiral to the positive and then you spiral to the negative. But it's always trending up over time. If you can just be with the process when you're in the negative part of the spiral, be in the negative part of the spiral. Take more care of yourself, spend some time with yourself, whatever it takes to just get through that, but just let it all come up and be forgiven and healed, and don't identify, right? The function of this is basically the direction our energy is moving. If I want my energy to move outwards, which is to become expansive, to widen my energy field, then I need to be in the function of giving and receiving. And that's what love is giving and receiving, and a balance between giving and receiving, right? You can't just do one 90% of the time and only do the other 10%. There's got to be a balance. I give just as freely as I receive. And when you're in that state, your energy field is expanding because your energy is moving outwards. But if you want your energy to move inwards, then you need to move to the ego's function, which is taking and keeping. It's the opposite of giving and receiving. It's taking energy from someone and withholding energy from them. And that's what causes our energy to go inwards. And so you see how however long the cycles are, usually it's, a couple of weeks I've noticed for me, where I'll seem to be in a pretty high frequency just naturally. And then I'll feel my energy lowered for a week or two. And the periods of that lowering have gotten less and less difficult to manage because you're more clean every time, right? But there's still a period of your frequency lowering. And it's like, actually, that's a good thing because your energy has to move inwards temporarily if you're going to get down in there and pull out the stuff that's hiding in the bottom of the subconscious mind. You need your energy to go inwards for a little bit to do some excavation. So you see how we just shoot ourselves in the foot in so many ways by defining our state of being negatively and for any reason by judging it as, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should feel happy because I'm spiritual and I should be over this. You see what a detriment that is to yourself to have that attitude rather than the attitude of this is absolutely perfect. What I'm feeling is perfect. What's arising is perfect. I love all of it. That is the attitude for ultimate success on the spiritual path. But that's an attitude, as you both know, that has to be earned through the daily practice.
Yeah, so much wisdom there. We did an episode recently called Loving the Unconscious Consciously, where we talked about
Nice.
bringing conscious awareness to the moments of unconsciousness and allowing it to play out with non-judgment, non-attachment, non-resistance, and observing so that you can use it to grow. And, that's something we've been doing a lot in our partnership. So much so, there's been a few times where, spiritual joke, we're just like, oh, like, I guess this is what we're doing today. Like, this is just that something, he
Yeah.
says it as, what do you say it as? Like, something's being purged right now, or
Yeah,
something's asking to be
something's
expressed.
Oh,
asking
And
to
yeah.
be expressed,
and
and
just like choosing to love that and choosing to work with that. Something I was thinking while you were talking was, I feel like the marker of a truly authentic spiritual teacher like you are, is someone who, well, I guess I would talk on the other side. Like you see a lot of gurus who promise enlightenment, right? And like, oh, do this thing and buy my course or sit in meditation and it's all going to be great. And the thing that I love so much about what you just said is how real and truth oriented you kept it, that like you're always going through it, right? Like even you, Aaron, who's been on this journey and is a very conscious being and is devoted to this for years and years and years, you still have those periods. And so no
Mhm.
matter where you are, can you meet that with love? And can you let it
Yeah.
be whatever it needs to be? And sometimes, for listeners, like from my vulnerable perspective, sometimes I'm aware something is happening and I'm like, wow, this is multi-dimensional, right? I mean, it's just my limited human understanding can't always comprehend like what is
Mhm.
happening spiritually, physically, energetically, emotionally,
Yeah, of course not.
psychologically,
Yeah.
like, and I'm just bringing that awareness of like, whew, something is happening right now. I don't know what it is. It's pretty shitty, but I'm just gonna like love it and let it happen because I know and I've cultivated that, like you said at the end there, that awareness and that light that like this is all for my highest good and it's all perfect and it's all necessary for, evolving and ascending.
Hmm.
You wanna?
yeah, I mean, I think this segues perfectly into our next topic
Mhm.
of relationships and how we have the capacity to do some really deep healing work in our relationships as they act as mirrors for each other.
Hmm.
Um, because in this kind of practice of loving the unconscious consciously, we've learned that, choosing love is just that. It's a choice, right? We always have the capacity or the availability to say, I'm going to choose love in this moment. And regardless of what comes up, when we live from a conscious perspective in relating with one another, with kind of this base principle of unconditional love, and like, hey, I know that you're walking this journey through consciousness as I am as well. And no matter what comes up in our fields, we are going to allow it to play out and we're just going to love each other through it. Even if we're both in a reactive state, underneath that, in our subconscious, in our heart space, we are loving each other through that. And so it's given us the opportunity to like really dive into some really deep, intense patterns where we are um, playing out some like really intense arguments or screaming at each other or,
Mm,
whatever it may be, from this lens of being able to observe with non-judgment and say, oh, interesting. What's occurring right now? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling as I'm feeling it? And then
yeah.
once all of the emotions kind of work their way out and we have an opportunity to, separate in love and ground ourselves and then come back, we now have these new data points that we weren't able to
Data points.
really like uncover by either catching it in the moment and changing course, right? Like mid conflict, we're gonna change course, we're gonna choose love, and we're gonna not allow it to play out, or realize that we're getting triggered and then just kind of like requalify in that sense, and we're gonna choose love now, and we're just gonna not let it play out. There's
Yes.
this other aspect of learning to in relationship play out those experiences to their fullest and darkest and most intense extent, and then coming back to love afterwards, both saving space for the experience and analyzing it together as a couple, and then being able to learn from those patterns after the fact.
Hmm.
Mm. It speaks so much, I feel like, and he's right. It's perfect segue because obviously we are in a conscious relationship. You are in a conscious relationship. If you're not familiar with that, it's whatever you want it to be. But, the way we describe it is it's two people who are consciously walking a path of healing, a path of love, a path of whatever word works for you, and are in relation with each other, which, spoiler alert, we're all headed there. Like every single person on this planet is going to be in a conscious relationship with everything at some point. And so I'd
Hmm.
love to hear your perspective, Aaron, on, you talk about this a lot. It's really two in one. The fact that we're in relationship to everything, because we're always telling people you're in conscious relationship with your friends, your family, your food, your body,
Hmm.
source, God, creator, whatever you call the divine. So that aspect of being in relationship to everything, and then also the power, like you just barely scratched the surface of conscious relating, and specifically romantic relationships, because that's obviously what we are in, and how that can be a catalyst. And
Hmm.
powerful is just not a word that's going to do it justice, but a
Hmm.
really potent catalyst for growth.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love this topic so much because, when you have a spiritual concept you've learned from a book, from a video, from a teacher, you learn a concept that it resonates. You know it's true, you feel it inside, but you haven't really learned how to master it or embody it yet, and maybe you don't even really know how this concept translates to your practical everyday life. Well, the beautiful thing I've noticed, at least in my life, and if it works for me, I know it works this way for everybody, is that if you just hold on to a concept that you love you resonate with it, you know it's true, you believe in it, the universe goes to quick work teaching you how that principle applies practically to your life. The only question is, are you paying attention to how it's trying to teach you that concept? And there's been no other, playing ground on which the universe has taught me more about all the principles I teach today than romantic relationships. It's been by far the biggest catalyst in my life for really practically learning all these things I teach about. And so, what my conscious relationships have taught me is, so we talked about the balance of masculine, feminine principles. One of the things I teach about in Florida University is spiritual balance, what spiritual balance is and how to have it in your own mind, in your relationships. And it begins with, in the law of one, they call it the three disciplines of the personality. And I know you guys know about this, but for the audience, it's the three disciplines are know thyself, that's the masculine principle, accept thyself or love thyself, that's the feminine principle. And when you've done those two, when male and female come together, there is creative power. And so the third discipline is become the creator. And so it has to go in that order. First, you need awareness of something. You don't even know what you're supposed to be loving if you're not even aware of it. So, masculine first, gain the awareness of what it is that's arising. Accept it as it is, love it, know its perfection, know that God is working perfectly through it in some way. Once you've accepted it and there's no resistance towards it, now you can actually choose your preference. And that's the way I like to summarize the third discipline of become the creator. I tell our students, when you see or hear me say become the creator in any of our curriculum anywhere, see instead the words choose your preference. because that's all it means. To become the creator of your life, your personal reality, means to be able to consciously and lovingly choose your intention in every moment. So what reality do I want to experience, and what realities am I not interested in experiencing? And the ones I'm not interested in experiencing, I have no resistance towards them. I don't hate them or judge them. They're just not my preference. And that's the big difference. So if I want a loving reality, if I really want that, then I must commit myself to living in that reality. Meaning, if I'm the creator and everybody listening is the only creator of their reality, right? Eric, Amaris, myself, none of us can step into your mind and requalify your thoughts for you or create your reality for you. You're all alone in your personal reality. And so learning how to use your creative power is so important. And when you know it's these three functions, know yourself, love yourself, and then you can truly be the creator. Because if there's any victimness in your mind still, then you don't really believe you're the creator. And so you can't truly create yet. So these are the principles of spiritual balance: is harmonize the masculine and feminine principles in whatever it is, and then begin to choose your preference from that balance. So in a romantic partnership, one of the first things I'll say is, if in your romantic relationship something feels like it's off, then something is off, period. A loving relationship, a truly aligned, loving relationship is undeniable, unmissable, right? When you're really in alignment with somebody, hitting on all cylinders in a loving relationship, you know it because you're too full of joy to even question if it's loving, right? You're in the love, it's your experience. So if you're at the point of asking, is something off in my relationship? Something definitely is. And you need to start finding what that imbalance is. So let's say an interaction happens where a conflict or a disagreement ensues. We usually will feel a negative emotion, right? And what I need to know for me to stay balanced, because I can't create balance in a relationship if I don't have it first. So I need to have balance for myself first. And that means that when I do feel a negative emotion in a conflict, then I have stepped out of love somewhere in my mind. And I just need to be aware of where that is and then forgive myself for it. And if I can do that, I've done those first two disciplines, right? So feeling is the most important dynamic to spiritual balancing in relationships, because feelings are really our only true compass, for knowing that there's an imbalance. You can't really think your way through these things, and you don't need to, right? Because you can feel your way through them. Your feelings are already pointing you to where the imbalances are. So when we notice a feeling of imbalance, maybe we leave a conflict feeling enraged or hurt or upset or afraid, then we know that we created an imbalance in our mind, and only we can then requalify it and heal it. So if we're feeling enraged after a conflict, going back to the 3 beliefs of ego, which I teach through everything, if I feel angry after a conflict, I know I had an attachment, right? I had some expectation. Usually it's of their behavior, right? I had an expectation that you shouldn't talk to me this way or that way. You shouldn't behave this way or that way. You shouldn't feel these things. If we have expectations of what our partner should or shouldn't do or say or feel, well, we're going to be upset because they're going to not meet those expectations almost every time. So it's like, oh, I created that imbalance by having an attachment of my partner's behavior. So only I can uncreate that attachment. I can't force my partner to meet my expectation, because forcing somebody to do something is not loving. So it's always about taking self-responsibility until we can create an environment in ourselves of harmony and balance and groundedness. And only then can I actually bring that energy to a conflict and diffuse the conflict. So a lot of times we just kind of are putting the cart before the horse, right? Where we know these principles, we're really knowledgeable, and we want to apply them to our relationship. But if we're being very honest with ourselves, it's like, but have I really achieved the kind of balance that I want in this relationship? If I'm still getting triggered, if I'm still leaving conflicts charged up with negative feelings, then I don't have perfect balance in myself yet. So that's really where my focus should lie first. And that's not to say you can't have conscious conversations while you're working on yourself. It just means, like, before I put all this stress on my partner to get on my level and stuff, let's make sure I'm actually embodying, like authentically, really embodying. the energy I want my partner to embody. Because if I'm not, then who am I to expect my partner to be on a frequency that I'm not even at? But so often we do that in conscious partnership, right?
Mhm.
Oh, we don't do that. No. We do that a lot.
What?
We're
We never do that.
what? Well, and sometimes even in the moment, and we're like, oh, damn, we did that again. And we'll just start laughing because it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
dang, okay, there's some work to be done here. And, it really just speaks to the power of something I think we could not possibly say enough on the show. It's like it all comes back to the self. It all comes back to inside. Everything is a radical call to look back within myself. Where am I not being loving? Where am I not creating this in myself? And I, resisted that for a really long time. And, there just comes a point in one's journey, I feel, where you just kind of have to accept that radical accountability. Something you touched on that is so powerful and we talk a lot about because you have the victimization gene key is victimization
Mm.
and how victimization is kind of per the gene keys the core shadow, one of the core
Yeah.
shadows that is like plaguing humanity right now.
Yeah.
And now that I'm aware of it, I mean, you see it in everything. I
Hmm.
will say we don't see it much here in Asheville. Like that victim mentality, it's they're really focused on the love and it's beautiful. But
And if anyone should be a victim, they should, right?
right.
Yeah.
And instead it's just an opportunity to show up for your neighbor and love. And it's a perfect example because we are not victims, and
Hmm.
I know you've done a lot of work around this with this gene key, but there is a huge call right now to us as a species to stop playing the victim. Even a conversation we
Yeah.
had last night, it was centered around politics, right? And something I was really thinking because this person, I'll keep it very anonymous, individual was essentially, pressuring us to go out and vote and vote for a certain side. I'm not even going to say what side because it doesn't matter. And the thought behind that was, that if this candidate wins, they're going to save us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And apologies, there's a loud thing going over. And
I
the
actually can't hear it at all, just so you guys know.
perfect, it's
I
just
haven't heard a
really loud
single
for
sound
us.
but y'all's voices, so we're good.
Great. No dog licks or anything.
Nope.
And it's that mentality. And I was really lovingly and firmly reframing like this isn't a this versus this or that versus that.
Hmm.
No one's saving us. No one's
Yeah.
saving us but ourselves. It doesn't matter who
Hmm.
wins or loses or whatever. Like if we cannot radically come in and take accountability, we are not a victim of our government. Asheville is not a victim of FEMA or anything else or
Hmm.
weather manipulation or whatever we want to,
Yeah.
choose to put our energy on. You said something on an Instagram reel recently. You were like, we live in a victimless universe, right? Like
Hmm.
we just do. And that I think is a really hard pill for people to swallow. And I know
Yeah.
it's the radical work that we're constantly doing and that our listeners are doing. And just shout out to everyone listening to this who's doing that work because it is challenging. We're not discounting
Hmm.
we could say spiritual warfare that we're all living through, like choosing to realize, oh, no one ever did anything to me. I did it all to myself by how I perceived it and how I
Yeah.
chose to relate with it. It's a profound shift in consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, if there were ever like a red pill to take, right? I think overcoming the victim mentality is that red pill because that
Mm.
is stepping out of the suffering and recognizing that we are the creator of our reality and that empowers us to make actual tangible changes in our life and in the world around us. And in a society with, especially in relationships and romantic relationships and familial relationships, there's this buzz around, oh, that person's a narcissist. Oh, there's like narcissistic abuse,
Hmm.
and I've really sat with this because I've experienced both sides of the coin of experiencing narcissism and being narcissism.
Hmm.
Um, in this partnership and in familial and all these things. And it's like, how if we can stop saying, you know, this person's a narcissist, and so
Or
I
toxic.
or toxic or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, and so it's because of them that I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling in my partnership or relationship. Or on the flip side, it's the deep association and identification with victim mentality that breeds the experience of narcissism. I believe that
Mm.
that when we believe that everything in the world around us is what impacts and affects my world, then we go into this victim state and this need to take and hold. And like you were saying earlier, of like I need to be in protection of my own energy, and everything around me is to serve me and to be a projection for meeting my needs, right? That's narcissism. And that's not, right? And that's not fundamentally who we are. Narcissism is an experience. It's not what we as individuals can be. And so there's this buzz around like, oh, that person's a narcissist. Well, actually, what in our relationship can we take accountability for? Where can we start to exemplify freedom in our life? Because that is the gift on the flip side of the shadow of victimization. It's freedom. And that's what we're all
Mhm.
being asked to do and bring into this world is the freedom to choose to be the creators of our life. And we have the capacity to do that.
Mhm.
And the thing about victimization is that it is a horse pill to swallow. Like it is
Mhm.
a really big pill to swallow,
Yeah.
but it is also the most potent medicine because if we can really muster the energy to swallow that pill, we can accept that we have the capacity to change our life. And that is the most important thing for people to understand.
Mm. I will
Yeah,
never
fully
forget.
agree.
I'll never forget when this happened for me. It was actually in a couples session, almost 2 years ago that we did with Brandon Bozarth, who was Eric's life coach many moons ago. And he helped me through the power of inquiry go back. And then when we did the flip exercise, and I was actually looking at a parent when I was younger in a really traumatic and impactful, I was like 11, moment of perceived abandonment. And I was
Mhm.
able to, through that kind of flipping the coin, say the words, feel the experience, and consciously allow the reality that I abandoned myself. And really the premise of that was, another thing we heard in that church sermon on everything is an inside job is everything, and this leads us perfectly into love. Everything is either an act of love or a cry for love. And so
ACIM.
yeah, exactly. Was I abandoned or was I choosing or my ego, really, not I, choosing this reality, based on my perspectives, which is all understandable. I was an 11-year-old and a parent was going through a suicide attempt and I was abandoned. And when
Yep.
I can look back on that and say, oh, it was just a being in suffering, not in
Yeah.
love, crying for love, and I chose the narrative that like I was abandoned and you're a terrible parent and all these narratives. And here I am, at this point I was like 30 and I'm still holding this shit. Like it's still
Mhm.
in my mind. And it doesn't matter parent or who, what, when. It just this narrative of like I am abandoned. And being able to requalify that, as you would say, and just like really take that radical. I mean, that pill was, like he said, it's really hard to swallow, and it's really
Mhm.
through again love and moving into that frequency and just choosing differently. And once we start to do that, we can move out of victimization, we can move into freedom. And I really truly believe, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, we believe here in this show, love is the way. Love is all that there is. Love is the unconditional fabric of the universe. God is love, truth is love. How many times can I say love? And it's through that, love and cultivation of love that we personally have found our path. But, we have a kind of bhakti devotion path, so it makes sense.
Mhm.
So, we would love to hear from you, Aaron, what your perspective on love is. What is it? And I think it ties really perfectly into the law of one, which you teach on a lot, and this concept of oneness. And how we all like collectively can move out of this fear-based consciousness that we're living in and as it was intended to be by the creator, live in this world of love.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm fully with you guys. Love is the answer, the only true answer to anything. And it's really the only thing I am confident that I know at this point is that I just know that love is always the answer and the highest truth. And beyond that, I don't know anything, but I know that. because it has proved itself in my experience every single time I've applied it.
Mm.
Every life lesson I've learned, I look back and go, wow, love was the answer to that. Maybe I didn't see it then, but I can see it now, and healing is available now if I can see that. And so, yeah, it all comes back to this victim identity that the ego lives with, because there's only love and fear, as the Course says. Fear is the seeming opposite of love, and it's really just an illusion, of course. But in physical reality, it feels very real. And so, from the physical perspective, we have only these two states to choose between. And the Course is very clear that, hey, guess what? You're always making a choice between love and fear, because that's the only choice there is. And so somebody who's narcissistic, for example, when you really integrate this awareness that there's just love or fear and I'm always choosing, then when you see a narcissist, you really just see a very scared, frightened, who's very afraid of being seen for who they really are. And so they have to project this strong outward image of confidence and superiority, and they need to control people so they feel more safe. It's all based in fear, right? And everything the ego does is based in fear, or we could say victimhood. It's really, they're kind of synonyms. So if I'm in victimhood, that really means, I believe, I'm in a state of lack of some sort, right? To be a victim is to be lacking something. And lack is the first belief of ego, which I think we covered. Lack, belief number one. Attachments is the second belief. And personal control is the third belief. So a victim is somebody who's deeply entrenched in the belief in lack. And so it makes sense, right? That if I am believing that I am fundamentally lacking something that I want or need, then I have to be in the mode of taking and keeping, which we said is the ego's mode. Ego only knows taking and keeping, attraction, aversion. It wants something or it wants to avoid something. It's all about me. And if somebody is living from lack and victimhood, they don't have a choice not to be living from that energy. And so love is to have the awareness of where somebody is. And it's a very loving thing to do for somebody, right? To actually see them as they are. And what's funny about this is that egos, people who are still living in their ego, they're not aware that somebody who's operating from a higher frequency above the ego level can totally see the things they're hiding. And like, you're not fooling me at all, dude. Like all of your pride and forward arrogance you portray, I just see a scared little child. They think they're hiding their scared child from me, but actually they're announcing it to me. And it's kind of a paradox, right? And it's like only once you're able to look at somebody with truly loving eyes will the universe allow you to see that part of people, because you're seeing it from a non-judgmental space. And that's the only space you can really see anything, is from non-judgment. Because if you're looking with judgment, then you're not really seeing them yet. You're seeing your own bias or judgment about them. So when someone's in their patterns of taking and keeping, whether it's in a conscious partnership, whether it's my partner, whether it's a stranger off the street, am I embodied enough in love to be able to feel the energy behind their words and actions? And that's most important for living from heart-based consciousness, is that when I'm living from my heart, I have my green ray energy field in activation. So the green ray energy field is much wider than the yellow ray, the solar plexus. Every energy center's aura is a little bit wider. So love stretches out much, much farther into our environment and allows us to feel into the energies in our environment and be aware of them. And that's very helpful for being of service, right? Because if I can really feel where somebody's coming from, then their egoic disguises and smoke screens that they're throwing up won't fool me at all. And most of us have experienced this with like a friend or even your partner, somebody you know very well who's hurting and trying to hide it from you. And you're like, hey, how you doing today? And they're like, I'm good. And you're like, oh, they're not good. And you feel it right away. And because you feel that, you know that they clearly don't really want to talk about it, probably because they're bypassing it. They're like, I'm fine, everything's great. And you're like, obviously you're suffering, so let's talk about it, right? Well, if I have enough love to feel that energy, then the solution will come to me. What to say, what to do, what not to say, what not to do. All of those things will come to me naturally through the loving vibration I'm in. So the great thing about love is that love is its own compass and guide. It's its own teacher. We just have to be in the consciousness, right? The vibration of love, and love lives through us. Love acts through us. And one of the ways it does so in our romantic partnerships, at least I've noticed, is just the ability to hold space for your partner, however they show up, and genuinely be able to understand their perspective and help them to feel that you understand their perspective. It's like, man, if you guys could take one thing away from this podcast as it relates to loving consciously in your relationship, make it this. In any situation, conflict or not, but especially in the conflicts, make your first priority always, 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 always to listen to your partner first before you give your perspective. It's like you take the higher road, right? If you are, oh, I know I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm so upset you did this, and you want to give it to them, can you take a pause in that moment and say, okay, I have justified negative emotions that need to be discussed. That's totally valid. I'm not wrong for feeling any of this, but these are imbalances in myself. And so, would fire hosing my partner with my imbalances in this moment be helpful to resolve this conflict? And if you take enough space to just ask that question, it answers itself right away. You say, all right, so what is a helpful way of being in this conflict? And it's always this. It's okay, I have the right to express my feelings to my partner, and I should. You shouldn't withhold truth from your partner. So I will express what I'm feeling, but only after I've taken the high road first and given my partner enough space to share what they feel. Let them express their emotions, and then make sure that they know I heard them and I understand their perspective. Because that's really the essence of spiritual balancing. As I know you both know, in the Law of One, Ra gives this example of, to truly be balanced is to go deeply into the perspective that you have resistance towards. And I'll use simple analogies. We could go left versus right in politics. We could go vegan versus carnivore. Pick your opposites, right? If I'm a vegan and I just get so triggered around these damn carnivores eating meat, they're so heartless. They don't care about animals. They just care about themselves. And that's my current reality. Well, I need to ask myself, okay, that's my perspective of the carnivore, but does the carnivore have that perspective of themselves? And of course, the answer is no. The carnivore's perspective isn't, I'm just an evil person who hates animals. That's why I love steak. Like, duh, that's not where they live. So can you understand their perspective from their perspective is spiritual balancing. Like literally put yourself in their shoes, almost like live a day in their life in your mind, and ask yourself, like, why would somebody think that eating meat isn't wrong and isn't cruel to animals? And how could somebody justify that? And then you'll start seeing the ways that people justify it. And we all know the ways. I don't have to say them here, but you go, okay, yeah, I see it. I understand how I could be in their shoes and have arrived at that belief. I don't have judgment towards that anymore. All we're trying to do is take the charge out of it. We're not saying you have to agree with the carnivore and become one. That's not spiritual balance. Spiritual balance, like we're under no obligation from the universe to give in to somebody's demands or change who we are for somebody else. That's not what balance looks like. Balance just looks like removing the resistance we have towards others. And that requires us, right, to understand their perspective, because understanding is the first action of love. Is love always looks to understand and make people feel understood. And so once there's no charge in the conflict for me, because I've considered my perspective and why I feel right, and I've taken the time to really consider my partner's perspective and why they feel right. Well, now with that neutral, grounded energy, I can bring that to the conflict and just listen, let them speak. Don't jump in to chop them up. No, I didn't say that. No, that's not true. That's how we get in big trouble in conflicts, is we're not holding the space and really listening. We're waiting for an edge to get in there and show them that I'm right. So that's the hardest part of being loving in relationships, is not doing this to your partner in a conflict. But do you see how I have to be able to do that with myself first before I can do that with my partner? If I can't sit with my own negative emotions and give them love and understanding and space, I'll never do it with my partner. So these things translate so perfectly that what I'm working on in myself, you better believe it's going to show up in my relationship to everybody, but especially my partner. And when I notice that I'm imbalanced, when I feel a charge towards my partner, that's my responsibility, not theirs. And so trying to force them to admit they're wrong, apologize, whatever it is, can't possibly be the solution. Because if you want balance and you have two people who are saying, I am right and you are wrong, no, I'm right and you are wrong, how do you find balance between that? There isn't, because they're opposites. So you can only sort of go your separate ways, or you can be the one who first chooses to lay down your weapons and say, look, I don't care about being right. I just want to resolve the conflict and understand each other. And hopefully, if you can do that, if you can be the first person in the situation to give that energy, hopefully your partner will feel that and it will depolarize their anger and they'll give it back. And this is a big key I tell people, which this question comes up all the time in our community in 40U, is like, how do I apply these principles to my abusive husband who's always screaming at me and stuff? And the answer is, all that you can do is offer your partner the loving energy you want them to give you back, right? You can only give what you want to receive. You can't take it from the other person, right? You can't make them be loving to you. That's what ego tries to do. That's
Only
taking
what
and
I
keep.
do not give can ever be lacking.
Bingo. Only what I don't give can be lacking. So it's like, what am I offering my partner is a good question to ask. And what you're offering is really not so much the words you're saying, right? But the energy you're giving them. And so in those interactions where, and this is probably the case for, I would imagine, most people listening, right? Is that if you're watching this podcast, if you're on a conscious spiritual path, you're probably uniquely devoted to your spirituality. And your partner, in most cases, probably isn't as devoted as you. This is a very common issue in the spiritual space is, hey, I'm so passionate about this, but my partner really couldn't care less. Like they're not interested in personal growth. How do I be in that relationship? Well, all you can do is offer your partner the energy of the solution and see if they're interested in having that loving relationship with you. So what that looks like is if you're a woman and your husband's verbally abusive and all of this, he comes home and he says something very inconsiderate or rude to you, like, I to wash these dishes this morning and you still haven't done it. Why haven't you washed the dishes yet like I told you to? And then you're like, okay, they just gave me, negative energy, attacking energy. I want to give them back loving energy so that they can see I'm not interested in having a conflict with you. I'm interested in having balance with you. So instead of quipping back at them with a passive aggressive remark, I can say, so sorry, my love, I got caught up with work and I'm happy to wash the dishes now. And you're giving them a loving response rather than an angry response. And so hopefully, if they're open to having that kind of relationship with you, they'll feel that energy from you and it will depolarize them. And they'll have a moment of kind of checking in and saying, okay, I should calm down a bit. And so thanks, babe, I appreciate that. And they walk out. Okay, well, that interaction just showed me that my partner at least is somewhat interested in having a loving relationship. So that's good. And that would be a relationship that you could feel good about pursuing in this way. But if you offer the energy of love and your partner returns attack again for your love, they're basically telling you, I'm not interested in dropping this conflict with you. I'm interested in keeping this conflict with you. It feels good to me to feel this way towards you. And so that is a powerful message from your partner, right? And so if you're in a relationship where that's consistently the response you're getting, you continually try to offer love and solace and reconciliation, and your partner's not accepting it, then you have that decision to make of, is this relationship aligned for me now? Because my partner has given me sufficient proof for weeks, months, years now that they don't seem very interested in having a balanced relationship. And so what love would do is to say, okay, then I honor their path. I don't want to keep them in a relationship they don't want to be in. So go your way. Blessings. I love you. I forgive you. Thanks for the lessons. Thanks for the good times. I go my way. You go your way. We both win. And that's an important point about love, is that love always provides a solution where both people win. And it will never provide a situation where one person has to lose for the other to win. Meaning love never wants to say, I'm right and you're wrong, and make the other person concede defeat. Love will never ask someone to do that. Love will say, how can we both understand each other's perspectives? Because we're both relatively right. Everyone's right from their own perspective. So, how do we have a situation where both people can win? And at the bare minimum level, winning really just looks like not infringing on your partner's free will, right? Love means do no harm. If I want to truly love my partner, then I need to first be very aware of not infringing on their free will. So that's why I said you can offer the energy you want to your partner. You can demonstrate how you want to be in relationship of like, hey, I really don't feel good when we talk to each other that way. I want us to talk to each other in a loving manner as best as we can. So are you committed to focusing on that, working on that with me? And if they say yes, then you have their permission. If they say no, then they've told you what their free will is. And so you just need to honor their free will at that point. And that's the difficult part of relationships, is that oftentimes that means there has to be a breakup. But breaking up with someone can absolutely be the most loving thing to do for them, right? If there's dysfunction, if there's abuse going on, it isn't loving to allow somebody to perpetuate their abuse on you. You're feeding their ego, you're feeding their patterns. So the best thing you can do for them, if you get to the point where you're convinced they're not willing to change about this right now, is to leave their reality. And that gives them a powerful, like the void that you will leave in their life will leave such a powerful mirror for them to go, wow, I chased that person away who was kind and loving to me, and they wanted to work on this, and I wasn't, available for that. You will give people such a powerful lesson by actually doing nothing, but just walking away. That's one of the nuances of conscious partnership, is to know when it's right to do that. Because so often we want to leave a relationship too early because we're full of pain and stuff. But we might have a partner who's very willing to work on these issues with us. But if we don't have the ability to offer them the energy we want from them, we'll never see that from them. So it is the greatest catalyst for sure for all of those reasons.
Mm. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. Before we get into a response, my lovely partner here is cooking, and so I'm going to bring.
We have these like plants. I have 20 plants in our RV, if you can believe it. And they're hanging all in front of this window. So it's a
It's a
job
process to bring it down, yeah.
Thank you.
You guys have 20 plants in your RV?
Um, it fluctuates. It depends on how many survive and then we replace. But yeah, we've got quite a few plants in here.
That's impressive, man.
And like
We can hardly
600
keep like 5 alive at a time.
and like 600 crystals. I'm the plant lady, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
600 crystals is about accurate. Yeah.
Completely serious.
Yeah. You have a beautiful collection. You know, you've touched on so many amazing things. Thank you for sharing that instance, your experience, your wisdom on this. This has been our journey, like all of this. And it has been such a beautiful and intense and catalytic path to
Yeah.
really like wake up to the fact that we were unconscious, navigate the healing process, and then choose love and choose to like actually come together and heal. And one of the biggest things we've noticed in the spiritual space and just in traveling is that the amount of people who wake up, usually one wakes up first. In this case, it was my partner. Um, and then actually go through the healing process together is very
Mhm.
few.
Yeah.
And part of one of the biggest missions of this podcast is to show people that it is possible. It is possible to do this. The
Yeah.
healing is available. There is a passage through in the names of Joey Love, one of our friends. And part of that work, as you said, is in returning with unconditional love and grace to every situation. And really, like in the situation with the dishes, if a person comes back, let's say the husband spews emotional poison to the partner, you didn't do this thing. It's then that person's job, who is in the receiving end of the poison, to not identify with it, right? This has
Yeah.
nothing to do with me. My partner is obviously in a state of suffering.
Yes.
So if I show up with nothing but unconditional love and grace, what that does, and what this beautiful human has done for me in some of my darkest times, is it opens the door and says, I am not in, I'm not interested in having conflict with you right now. I'm interested in
Yeah.
understanding your suffering. What is that? And it it allows the male counterpart in this example to then say, wow, why did I come at you for not doing dishes? What am I experiencing?
Hmm.
And then the partner, the wife in that situation would then be able to hold space to understand and dive into the vulnerability of what the other unconscious partner is experiencing. Something that we've been navigating in this partnership is that it really is the not the duty, but the opportunity is in the hands of that who is more conscious to begin the
Hmm.
healing process
Mm.
Yeah.
and to choose not to identify with the conflict.
And the ego hates
Ooh, the ego
that.
hates that.
Yeah.
You
Uh,
mean I have to do the thing when they're the one that's out of love? At least
And
mine
they're
does.
wrong and I'm right.
yeah, yes. The answer is yes. And what you were saying earlier about it not being so much about the words, it being about the energy, that is so true. And I can speak to that from
Mhm.
personal experience of so many times doing the therapy talk and doing the let me repeat back what you said because that means I listened to you.
Mhm.
No, it is an energy of receptiveness, of truly sitting with your partner and saying, I am with you in this experience. I hear you, and let's talk about it.
Mhm.
Because that is so much more valuable than saying, see, I heard what you said. I was able to repeat it back to you, and that
Yeah,
means
yeah,
I listened to you.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
It's
can
about showing them you care. That's what listening is.
I can tell listeners from experience, and I'm sure you'd agree, Aaron, like when you do that, that authentic moment of, we call it choosing love, right? That's our tagline here. Always choose love. And our
Yes.
motto is awaken, heal, love, which was Eric, which is what Eric was talking about. But when that happens from my perspective, and he does that, it immediately slices through. And maybe that's just the level of consciousness we're at. But yeah, it immediately slices through the
Yeah.
ego and the unconsciousness. Like it's so polarizingly just a snap moment where I'm like, oh, my part, like ego can't, at least in our experience, it can't fight back against pure embodied unconditional love. Like when I'm, in my stories and I'm getting triggered, I'm getting activated and I'm spewing it at Eric, and Eric pauses and like truly regulates himself, like does all the things perfectly, right? In a perfect world, and
Hmm.
shows up and is like non-reactive, non-judgmental, and is just like, whoa, like I'm in it for you right now to offer you love. It's a 180 and it's almost instant, and it's a
Yep.
beautiful moment. Something I was hearing when both of you were talking, but especially you, Aaron, I kept hearing become like a child, right? And that, I mean, that's beautiful and it meant so many things. But in this sense, I'm thinking of the curiosity, become curious. Like, why? This has been the most impactful thing for me is it's like, why is my partner acting this way right now? And not like, "Ugh, what's wrong with him? Why is he acting this way?" But
Hmm.
like truly and authentically, I've been really doing this exercise of like envisioning baby Eric, little Eric, 3, 4, 5, 7-year-old Eric. Like,
Yeah.
why is
Hmm.
this manifesting right now? And even more so, like, what am I contributing to this? Because there's always an imbalance somewhere. And it's
Yeah.
been really, really profound. So I appreciate so much, you sharing all this wisdom. And the last question I think I'd really love to ask you is, where do you, and maybe we can just get like a little woo-woo on it, but like where do you see us going? When you envision, we call it the new world of love here on this show, but I feel like I've seen it, and it's beautiful and it's magical. And I'm just curious like what your perspective is on, what we have to look forward to on the other side of this incredibly challenging and catalytic moment, which I wanted to save for listeners as well. Like, this is challenging. Like, that is
Mhm.
all real. We hold that and we save space for that. We're on the ground in Nashville. We're navigating some intense familial healing right now, and we feel it. Like, it's very palpable. And we are moving into a world of love at some point. It's up to us when. I love how you say that when you're teaching. You're like, we get to decide, like, we are the creators
Mhm.
of our reality, but we are getting there. And I really like to end on that because I think breeding that positivity and breeding that vision of why am I even doing this, right? It can get so easy for me. My mind is like, other than our future children, like, why am I doing this? This sucks. It's so hard. Does it ever end, right? I'm just like trending up some days. So I'd love to
Mhm.
hear from you, what your perspective is on where we're going and what you think that might look like.
Well, I think humanity's trending up. We can say that, which is a good sign.
Yes,
Um,
Team Humanity.
yeah, but on the graph, we're at this part of the graph just beginning to trend up. So we've probably got a ways to go. But the way I look at this whole conversation about like new earth, planetary healing is, can I live in the new earth right now, not wait for the rest of the world to catch up, but can I start living there now? And that's the only way we manifest it, right? Enough of us have to make the choice of, I'm not waiting for the new earth anymore. I'm living in it now. And y'all can catch up when you're ready. That's the energy I want to help the world embody more of. Because if we keep playing the waiting game, it's like, well, there's people in power on our planet that have sort of chosen the negative polarity and they want to keep their power. So if the negative polarity on this planet is in the mode of keeping their power at all costs, which they are, and the positive polarity is in the mode of let's wait for the enlightenment to occur, we have a stalemate. There will not be progression, right? We have to be in the same mode that the negative polarity is, but on our polarity, which is, hey, the new earth is here, baby. We're building it, we're living it, we're seeing it, we're creating it. New earth is now, it's not in the future. Now they're in big trouble to hold on to their power because the new earth is unstoppable, right? It's new systems, new technology, far superior, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's AI, even the internet, right, has been the biggest Achilles heel for the negative polarity because it's allowed this connection around the planet and the sharing of information. And it's basically impossible for them to get away with secrets anymore because of social media and the internet. All these new emerging technologies are trying to carry us to the new earth. So it's like, guys, it's already here. It's waiting on us to take it by the hands and walk into it. So I want to live from the new earth now, which to me is fourth density consciousness. That is the next phase of human evolution. And to take the woo woo out of this, if anyone doesn't know what these terms mean, we won't go into a lengthy definition right now, but the densities refer essentially to the chakras, the energy centers, and every density is like a new stage of consciousness's development. And so on our planet right now, every human being is born with the first three chakras, right? Red, orange, yellow. But that fourth chakra, the green ray, heart chakra, has to be earned through spiritual discipline. And so everybody's born with the three chakras already in activation, but with only the potential to activate the green ray. And many people, probably still the majority of our planet, 60%, something like that, probably only ever experience the green ray activating when they have a child or those big joyful moments in life. Other than that, that thing is shut off, man. They're really operating from those lower three centers, which are the ego chakras. And so the heart chakra is humanity's only salvation, but it's also the next phase of evolution, meaning it is inevitable. It's an inevitable part of our progression. It will happen. When is the only question. And interestingly enough, in the law of one, Ra gives them an estimate, which was 100 to 700 years, they say, is going to be the time frame it takes for humanity to fully step into a fourth density consciousness. And so if that's true, then again, it just puts the onus on each and every one of us to live from and embody that heart-based consciousness now, because that's the frequency of the new earth, right? Is unity consciousness. We're all in this together. We're all one. If we come together, we can make the most incredibly beautiful, blissful, happy, healthy planet that any one of us can imagine. And beyond our imagination, we can create paradise on this planet if and only if we're willing to come together in love. So it's the frequency of the new earth, right? And so if any of us can live from that frequency now, How can we say the new earth is not already happening? It is happening through you and I. It's emerging right now. But it's not about forcing everybody else to get it and to wake up to it. It's about each one of us taking the responsibility to say, I can't make anybody live from heart based consciousness. Only I can do that. So I'm going to do that. And hopefully, by my embodiment of heart based consciousness, fourth density consciousness, I will inspire others to want to live from there as well. So in the same way that the negative takes power by manipulating, stealing, lying, cheating, that's how the negative takes influence over the world. The positive polarity spreads its influence the opposite way through the infectious, contagious nature of love. Everybody wants of their own free will to accept it once they see it, right? It's the best news anyone's ever heard when they finally hear it. And so it's accepted willingly, not as some kind of infringement. And that's why love has so much more power than control and negative energy has, because negative energy is based in not honoring people's free will, which means it requires a constant sort of stealing of free will. Very difficult to maintain. And so the negative polarity on our planet has done this only through outlets like the mainstream media and politicians that get up on a stage and they say the things that are going to persuade the people to keep voting for them, to keep listening to them, to keep outsourcing to them. And so again, through technologies like the internet, through podcasting, man, the landscape has shifted so fast on our planet. I mean, just in 10 years' time, we went from, mainstream media, newspapers being basically the only outlet for information. If you want to know what's happening in the world, you got to go find a newspaper or watch a news station. I mean, that was our reality, 20 years ago, basically. And now it's like, I don't know anybody that watches mainstream media. I don't know anybody that reads a newspaper. So I see these
We don't.
signs. I'm sure you don't either, right? We see all of these signs of the new earth emerging. And I think it's important for us to point them out and celebrate them and be grateful for them, because that's also the energy that creates more of it. When we can be grateful for the freedom we are taking back, then we don't need to worry about the power that they seem to have, because our power is in accepting what we have, right? If all of humanity united today, oh my gosh, no government in the world could do anything about it. No military in the world could do anything about it. It would be an inside job, right? It would be the entire military refusing to go to a war anymore. It would be every politician refusing to sign bills that don't serve the people. Like if the people united, there's nothing the negative polarity could do. They would be completely without power. So it only looks like they have power because we've given them so much of it. So let's take it back from them by being grateful for what we have, celebrating our power, celebrating our unity, and being in that frequency we want the world to be in. That's the solution, right?
I feel like that was a TED Talk. I mean, that was exquisite.
It kind
Two
of was.
things. It kind of was. You're like, it's all God. I'm just the channel, right? You
Yes.
know, something I heard, well, something you said was, it's inevitable. And I feel like that might even be the title of this episode, but like love is inevitable and
Mm-hmm.
inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oneness is inevitable. Like
Yep.
it is our nature. It is the grand design. It's the design of the creator. It's the evolution of consciousness of these beings on this planet. Like it's where we came from and it's where we're going, undeniable. And
Yep.
something my lovely partner here whispered in my ear while you were talking is he said, love is the new gospel, which shout out your gospel conspiracy masterclass. See if I can get that right. Because love is
Mm-hmm.
actually the original. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend. It's like what, 8 hours? We're still
8
digging through
hours.
it. Yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
like three
Oh,
hours
wow.
in.
Nice.
It's a lot to digest.
Oh, yeah.
We're taking it in
Well,
chunks.
to your point, Amaris, I'm actually the book that I'm writing about that whole subject is going to be called The Gospel of Love. So you
Mm.
guys nailed it.
There you go.
Well, there we go. Yeah, we were playing around with what the title was going to be, and I felt it come through in that moment. So it'll be one of those. But,
You channeled it.
spoiler alert, love is the original gospel. Like
Oh, yeah.
Jesus's real gospel and
Mhm.
the real intention of, all that was given to us that was just massively distorted and hijacked and manipulated and, whatever other clickbaity words we want to use. Like love
Mm-hmm.
was always the origin. It was always the answer. And it's so simple And, it's been created to be so complex. And so I don't say it's so simple
Yeah.
from ignorance. I really want listeners to understand it actually is that simple. Radically love yourself, radically love this world. Whatever you don't agree with, radically love it more, send
Hmm.
it more love. And just
Yeah.
every single thing in our lives is a call for more love. And where can I be more loving? How can I be more of service? And you said it as well, like the most powerful moments in your life were when you could see, like, oh, love was the answer. And on
Yeah.
both sides of the coin for me, like when I'm able to do that, it's heaven on earth, it's bliss, it's that glimpse of enlightenment. And on the
Yeah.
flip side, when I forget that, as I do, because I'm human, and I'm an
Hmm.
imperfect human, I really, really quickly can go from heaven on earth into just like utter despair and suffering. And so that invitation and that offering to listeners, like, love is the answer. It really is that simple. And, how you get there doesn't matter. We obviously love Aaron's teachings, and I'll have you plug everything here in a moment. But, as long as you are consciously working on a path of love and awareness, then we're all going to get there together. Do you
Mm.
have anything you want to say before I close this out?
Yeah, I mean, how great is that news, right? We can always choose love. Like that's what we say
It's
on
the
this
best news
podcast.
ever.
Like
Like, we should be
you,
Yep.
celebrating this.
yep,
Like,
this
our creator gave us love.
we have the
It's amazing,
capacity.
right?
Yeah, yeah, we have the capacity to always choose love. And simple doesn't always mean easy,
Right.
but it is definitely worth it. And we are living through some really beautiful times. We're watching the deconstruction of the world as we know it,
Yeah.
and all the suffering and all of the polarity that comes with that. And it's so interesting. You see it happening in synchronicity with the natural rhythms of this earth, right? We're watching fall where everything is asking to be shed, all the leaves are changing color, and what no longer serves is being released. And so we're seeing all these catalytic moments happening in our outside reality. We're going into a period of winter where we can really sit with an inquiry, all of these experiences, do the inner work, and really prepare for when spring comes, for when we can actually see the seeds that we planted start to bud, all of the love start to flourish, right? It's about holding that frequency of love through all of the negativity. It's about seeing our brothers on the street in active addiction or in houselessness or whatever it may be, and not turning away, but saying,
Yeah.
I love you. I love you. Let me hold space for you. Seeing the divinity in each one of our family. There's this amazing organization here in Asheville. They're called I Am, and they're
Nice.
Interfaith
interfaith.
Assistance Ministries.
Yes, that. And we went to go help stock shelves for their food bank, and I'd never heard this before. Instead of calling the population here homeless or houseless or any of the words that are being utilized,
Clients.
clients, they call them neighbors. They said, this is the food for our neighbors because that's who
Nice.
they are.
That's
And it
awesome.
just it spoke directly to my heart because it's like that's it. We're
Yeah.
all neighbors on this planet. We're all family.
Yeah.
And when we can choose to love each other in any capacity, however anybody is showing up, regardless of their expression, and like you said, to see their inner child,
Mm,
not the results and the projections of their negative experiences and how it's
Mm.
manifesting in their life, that is how we love each other out of this. That
mm,
is how
Yep.
we bring the world as we know it, or the new world as we know it, this world based off of love into our current reality. And I love, in the gospel conspiracy and some of the recent teachings that you've been talking about is the truth about the golden rule, about loving each other as ourselves. And if you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on that and to share your perspective, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
mm.
Well, I love that you brought up the seasons analogy because that fits perfectly with what we just talked about with everything is vibration. And we go through ebbs and flows of our own frequency. And just like the planet itself goes through a winter season where the old dies away, the leaves fall off the trees, it's the shedding, it's the purging, it's the letting go. and then the new life comes in the spring. It's like we go through those seasons as well, energetically. And so if I want to be the true creator of my reality, and I want my reality to be one full of love, and that's what I choose, I'm committed to this. My reality will be a loving one. Well, then all that really asks of me is to make sure that I'm always giving out the energy I want to qualify my world with. So the moment I withhold love from someone or something, I've just qualified my world to be unloving in that way. And so it's like, are you, at the very least we should shoot for is qualifying your world 51% of the time with love. Most of us, it's like, even if we start a spiritual path and come to these teachings, the default mode network of the ego runs by itself. And so it takes a while to kind of overcome it and build a new momentum. So you may only qualify 10% of your day with love. And that in and of itself already feels challenging. That's okay. Meet yourself where you're at. If 10% feels hard now, it'll feel easy in a month from now. And 15% will be the new challenge. And you're going to gradually inch your way there. But it's all about your ability to master giving out the energy you want to experience. And so if I'm in a die off, if I'm in a conflict, if I feel negative for any reason, then I can work on creating that loving reality right now by meeting what's arising with love. So as you guys have emphasized, there is never a reason not to give love. There's never a situation that doesn't call for love. Ra says, rule number one, the moment contains love. It's always your job to find it and activate it in that moment because we're the only reality givers, right? Love won't activate itself without one of us because love needs physical form to demonstrate itself in physical form. So we are the conduits of love. And we have to practice this simple ability to just live from a state of loving awareness where I don't concern myself with the opinions of other people anymore. I don't even concern with the actions of people anymore. I understand everyone's behaving according to their current level of consciousness. It's like going into a classroom with second graders and being like, why are all these second graders writing their ABCs and learning how to simple addition? Like, this is so basic. Everybody would be like, hey, dude, you're the problem here. Can you please leave? He's like, this is where they are, brother. So can you just that? You're the one who's insane, not them. If you can't accept them where they are. But it's like we're always doing that, right? We look at an evil tyrant and get all thrown out of our, inner peace because they're doing evil things in the world and it makes us so angry. And it's like, why should it make you angry? You should totally expect tyrants to behave tyrannically. That's what they do. That's what their ego program is. If you get bent out of shape by the way anyone's behaving, that's your own imbalance. Yes. So love is the awareness of my imbalances and to never impose my imbalances on somebody else. And if I can be in the state where I never impose my imbalances on others, meaning I don't judge people, I fully understand everyone's where they are, then I finally unlock the ability that you were talking about, Eric, to actually be able to see everyone as little children. And, this is something I'm learning as a new father with my daughter, Arya, who's 11 weeks old, is that she's pure innocence without any ability to behave in a non-innocent way. And yet screaming, puking on me or whatever will sometimes trigger a negative emotion. And I get to go, whoa, look at me trying to force my imbalance on my daughter. Like, you shouldn't puke on me. Like, what? You shouldn't be a baby? Like, brother, she is a baby. And I talk to my ego like this. Like, what are you expecting her to not behave like a baby? Could you have behaved like not a baby when you were a baby? You do this with your own mind and you come to these easy conclusions of, yeah, everyone's just where they are. And at the end of the day, you can see the inner child in yourself very easily if you look for it, especially by being around children, watching how they have so much fun just doing some simple thing and they find joy in simple things, beauty in simple things. And you can go, wow, yeah, there's that little kid is still in me too. I can find beauty in simple things. I can have fun with simple things. And you start to realize, wow, we never lose our inner child at all. We just build layers and layers on top of it. And we call that the adult part of us. But we've always been that inner child and always will be because our nature is that innocence, that beauty, that godlike perfection. So if I can't see that in other people, the innocence, I can't see it in myself either. And so I can't really be living from love. and judgment at the same time. So this is one of the best lenses that I've discovered for myself is, like ACIM says, everything's either love or a cry for love. And when my baby cries out for love, like there's no hesitation on my part to meet her need, right? There's not even a second thought of, should I answer my baby's call right now? Not even a nanosecond is wasted, right? The moment I hear her crying, I go right into, how can I help? How can I be of service? And it's
Mm.
like, what if we all had that mentality towards everybody, not just our babies? You know, when
Mm-hmm.
someone's crying out for help, well, how can I be of service? I don't waste a minute judging them for what they're doing. You know, to me,
Mm.
that's the real deep level of heart-based consciousness.
It's like it's like when they say, oh, picture the audience naked. No, listeners, let's
Yeah.
requalify that. We're just going to picture everyone as little babies. We are. We're
Yep.
just little spiritual babies. And when you can zoom out, and like really see a higher perspective of, oh, we are all spiritual babies. Well, not all of us, but most of this planet are spiritual babies,
Yeah.
and they're just learning. I love that you brought up Aria. I was gonna close us out with that. And just seeing you become a dad, like I was telling Eric, when we saw you and Selena last at the festival, we were talking about she was pregnant. And we
Hmm.
went home and I was like, oh, I cannot wait to watch these beings become parents, because of course you're gonna be like exquisite parents. And just like also too, the catalysts that are gonna come from that and are gonna come from
Yeah.
just being a parent. Like that's a whole new thing. Obviously, with a, physical child, we haven't experienced that yet, but I just love that so much. And so many blessings to you and Aria and Selena, and just
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you for doing that work and bringing this. I remember the day she was born, like I was sobbing and I was like, oh my God, like the children of light are coming down. And several,
Yeah.
people in our sphere, like Om just had a child, and we're just seeing these children of light coming down. And so it's the proof. I feel like the ultimate proof. If you're like, I don't know, Amorous Eric and Aaron, I don't see it yet. I just see suffering. I just see chaos. Like
Hmm.
these children of light are coming down because the frequency, is allowing that. We are ascending. And so
Yeah.
look for those moments of beauty, look for those glimmers of love and of hope. And I'm just so grateful you're here with us today. We've been looking forward to this. You're such a blessing to us and our relationship, to this planet. And thank you for, your service, all that you do. I'd love it if you would plug it, where can people connect with you? We'll put it in the show notes as well. But what are all your offerings today?
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. It's been such a great conversation. I love your guys' reflections and just the fun co-creation that it is. If anyone resonated with this conversation, I teach all of these principles in 40U, and we actually just started a new membership a week ago called our student membership, which is only $44 a month, and we give you 8 foundation courses, which is kind of like the fast track to really learning and embodying these teachings as efficiently as possible, because each course has a series of lessons that every lesson has its own curated practice for that lesson. And really the practice for each course, we have our kind of our staple practices in 40U: devotion, number one, non-doership, spiritual balancing, requalifying, a lot of the stuff we touched on today. And the basic practice for each lesson is the same in each course, but with a little tweak each time to give you new angles and perspectives on that practice. So we found it to be an incredibly helpful way to kind of put people on, give them an on ramp to really learn, because the learning curve is not small for these concepts, right? And then learn and also embody and learn how to live this truth right away and apply it to your life. And then we have live calls and all that fun stuff as well. So check it out. We'll put the link in the description. Even if you just want to join our free community and be a part of what we're doing, we'd love that as well. Anyone who wants to be a part of this mission we've talked about today of embodying the light on this planet, being the demonstration of love on this planet, that's what we're all about at 40U.
Said so well. I feel like that's the foundation of this connection here, is that commitment and radical devotion to love and conscious relating and expanding consciousness. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, it's been such an honor, brother. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your experience, and for sharing your love, because that is the most beautiful resource that we have to give. And for all those listening from Aaron's community and from our community, our love is present with you always. We're all connected.
Yeah.
And as we navigate this experience of birthing this new world, right, being the creator and ushering in this world of love, we're all doing it together. You're not alone. And
Yeah.
so please, 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 if you can, share this message with as many people as you can. Get the word out there that love is the answer, that we have the capacity to change our reality, to
Mm.
move into a world of love, and it doesn't have to be difficult.
Mm.
Hmm. It can
Aaron, you
be
want to
fun.
close us out
It
with
can be
some
fun.
famous last words about love?
Yeah. Just thank you guys for the opportunity to talk about this. This is the one subject that just lights me up every single day. I never get tired of talking about this because it never stops, revealing itself to me in a new way in my life. That everything we're looking for, every single person listening to this, every single person on earth, from the cruelest tyrant to the greatest saint walking on our planet, everyone's looking for the same thing, which is love and the embodiment of love. And so, what incredible service can we all do in our personal world? There's people in your life, in your family, in your friends group who are really hurting, and they're probably not telling you about it or showing it, but everyone is suffering. It's just a fact of human existence is everyone's carrying so much pain. There's a line from the course I just love about this, and it says, "Be kind always, for everyone is fighting a difficult battle."
Hmm.
I think that summarizes the essence of love to me, is like love carries that awareness, right? That
Mm.
if anyone's not behaving lovingly towards you, they're in pain, they're in trauma, they're crying out for help, they're in need of healing. And I can be that healing just by holding a loving space. It doesn't take some kind of, TED Talk level oration to save people from their suffering. It just requires a person who can be in their heart and dare to be in that silent space with somebody who's hurting or angry or whatever it may be. And just to say, I see you, I hear you, you're accepted as you are, you're loved as you are. That's what's going to heal our planet.
Exactly. We love you all listening, and we love you, brother.
Love you guys. Thank you.